Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1467 of the Locked on Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland. And as I said before part one, it's part two with myself and Tyler Jones. If you missed part one, should be in your podcast feed of choosing right now. And I would definitely encourage you to listen to the entire thing in order. So this is part two, just one more friendly reminder at the top of the show. But always fun to talk to Tyler about the state of the Hawks at this point in time, early in the offseason, plenty to discuss in the future as well with the draft coming up in less than 2 months. But without further delay, we'll be diving back into the mix with Tyler Jones after the intro. Stay tuned. I'll be right back with myself and Tyler.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's time, Tyler. Let's pivot. Off-season talk, baby. It's time.
Off-season talk.
So let's just set the stage here. We've joked about it in our first part of this conversation, and I've said it before. The one thing I don't think is going to happen is they're going to run it back. I firmly believe they are going to trade someone from the top 8 or 9 guys. It might be more than one person, but I will be surprised, quite surprised, if the top 8, 9, 10 guys all return. For multiple reasons. Performance reasons, because they were 41 and 41. Money reasons, which we can get into if you want to. Quin reasons. You have this guy who probably wants to shake it up and have his own guys in there, all that stuff. That's my only real conviction. I took it one step further recently. Maybe you heard it. Maybe I said it to you offline too. I do think that it's more likely than not that either John or Clint or both is not there. And it's certainly not because I am low on either one of those players. I definitely think I'm higher than the consensus on both John and Clint. But just being practical and like reading the tea leaves and talking to people around the team and just like the natural ways to juice things and change things. And with Clint, it's more Onyeka in a lot of ways. With John, it's more role and all those things. So number one, does any of that surprise you? I would guess not. And from a fan's perspective, which is what you're bringing, what do you want to happen? I know you're really high on John, for instance. Tell me what you want to see.
I would like to see John play the role that's best for him.
That'd be nice to not have to just pick and pop this floor spacing corner shooter.
Because it's one of those things where you look at all his numbers. His offensive rebound percentage tanked this year because he's just out on the perimeter, just spotting up for jumpers, and like his pick and roll usage tanked, and it's like. You can't ask John's in a lose-lose situation where you're asking a guy who's not a natural he's not Gallinari, but they were asking him to be a Gallinari like spacer because he was the only one who could even potentially do it like from that position because the 4th spot for this Hawks team because due to the fact that Collins and Capella have to play next to each other due to the fact that there's no other 4 that's good on defense that can even reasonably shoot. Jalen is a non-shooter. Even though he will shoot it, teams don't respect him. Teams respect John. They will just leave him open. There's a difference in the caliber of shooting those two guys are.
Agreed.
But they need every single piece of information we have told us the Hawks are not getting stops unless those two are on the floor at the same time. They just don't.
And that's why they've been good as a pairing. And that's something that people always yell at me for. But the data is the data. They've always been good together, but it's because of the defense. And that's weird on a team that has Trae Young and you're built around offense. But yeah, for the longest time, at least 2 years, maybe even longer than that, the foundation of the defense has been yes, Clint as the anchor, but John and Clint. Especially the last 2 years when John's gotten better and Clint's gotten a little bit worse. I mean, he's still a good defender, but Clint's not the same guy he was 2 years ago. I don't think. But they're in this period of transition where it's like, and I think I said this on my first primary episode of the offseason. It's like, I think, and this is a little bit of me hearing stuff too, but also objectively in my own basketball analysis, I think if they were trying to find a way to keep John, and they're probably not actively trying to find a way to keep John at this point.
Yeah,
that's not where they are. But if there is a path to keep him, because I don't think that there is 100% chance he's traded, despite all of what's being said, it would be to not have Clint. And it's not because of Clint. I think that what you said about the role to kind of reset things, if you were to have Onyeka as the primary starting center, he's a little bit more mobile. He's a little bit more versatile than Clint. They seem to really like his shooting a little bit. They've encouraged him to space the floor a little bit more. You can kind of see him as the corner spacer sometimes and have John be the pick and roll guy sometimes. And John gives Onyeka some cover defensively where Onyeka's a great defender, but he is small. We all know that. So to have a bigger than average power forward in the modern NBA in John Collins, that helps him a little bit. Rebounding wise, John's a pretty good rebounder at the 4. Onyeka's not a great rebounder at the 5. There's ways to do that. And I think that just also money wise, quite frankly, especially if they try to set the tax, that's a whole other conversation. But if they were to get off of Clint, and it makes it more palatable to spend that money on keeping John or whatever. So does that all make sense to you? I mean, what's the world look like to you where like, okay, let's just assume for a second that they turn Clint into something useful on the perimeter. I don't even know what that looks like. That's for another day. Maybe Andrew Kelly and I will talk about fake trades one day. But like, let's just assume for our purposes, they decide to pave the way for the Onyeka era by trading Clint for something decent. And you look at the roster now, it's like, okay, can we just keep John and try this? And yeah, they're gonna have to get a backup center. Obviously, it's not gonna be Bruno, I don't think. But is that palatable? Like, what do you think that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, we saw the proof of concept in that last game. Actually, really, the last 2 games where,
they closed with 0 in game 5. Yeah.
Yeah. You're able, with Onyeka on the floor, you're able to do stuff. You're able to do the old stuff with John Collins that got him the $25 million season contract. Like, where you're getting elite offensive production because, I mean, he's one of the best rollers in the NBA. Even though, like, Onyeka's good at it and Capella's great at it, Collins is the best of those 3. Plus, he has a little bit more versatility in his offensive game when it comes to scoring in ways that Capella just doesn't. No. But you can't do any. The Hawks when Collins shares the floor with Capella, everything shows that his points per game go down, his usage goes down, everything goes down because that's the only way Capella can be productive offensively as the role guy. So then Collins has to be the spacer. But if you have Okongwu and Collins out there, you could do what they did with the Celtics, which is where the Hawks, Trae Young was just coming down the floor. Okay, where is the big man in this possession? Is he guarding Clint? Is he guarding Onyeka or is he guarding John? You running the pick and roll. Let's go. And like we're getting the switch, we're getting the matchup we want, and I'm attacking them. Or like they did it with Hunter too, and then we're like, okay, Okongwu, Collins, y'all gonna space to the corners. Me, you, DeAndre, because Horford's guarding you. We're not gonna let the Celtics get away with that anymore. We're hunting the big man because we know a big cannot stay in front of Trae Young, and they're not going to be able to challenge his jumper. So we're going to get a great look if they're going to switch, and if they don't switch, we're getting an open 3-pointer, or we're getting a shot at the rim with Collins on a smaller guy, or like if Collins has a crease, he's going to score. Like he's just automatic once he's going downhill that way. So and a Okongwu too. So it's just it's different. Do I think they're going to do that? No.
I don't. I don't. I do think. And again,
I think it could work, but I also like to me. This is just in general. I think their number one priority this offseason is signing Okongwu to a rookie contract extension because whatever they sign him to probably won't be the max. And I think of all the non-Trae Young guys on this roster, in terms of proven commodities of between Okongwu, AJ, and Jalen, Okongwu's pretty much proven, except he hasn't gotten the minutes. If he gets the minutes, he's going to borderline all-star production on both ends of the floor. And so, like to me, I feel like he was doing that at the end of the last season. Like at the end of the year when he really came on in Quin's offense, where the spacing was there, when he got to play alongside Bay and Bogey, you saw Okongwu just score, in volume in ways that Collins used to do. When Collins was in that role, before they decided to go in the complete win now mode. I'm like, to me, I feel very confident in saying this. Like I feel two things happen here. One, I feel like John Collins was a great soldier because he completely changed his game when Quin came. His 3-point, his 3-point attempt rate, like he used to half of his shots were 3-pointers. I don't know if people notice that. You can look at the statistic. Once Quin came, it didn't matter if he made or missed, he was taking threes. And like I feel like this organization respects, like, regardless to what the other people think, because he's always in these trade rumors, I do think this organization likes John and they respect him enough to know that's not his ideal role, but he's a great teammate. He'll do whatever it takes for this team to win, but we're going to do right. Like, to me, it feels like they came to a sort of agreement after the trade deadline. It's like, okay, you just take threes, more or less be a 3-and-D power forward, like, pretty much. We're not gonna just trade you. We're gonna put you in the best position for yourself to succeed and carry out your career. I really think that's kind of what they've been trying to do, but there's been, like, they've been battling. We really want to win. We have no replacement. There's nobody who's giving us a starting power forward. I don't think that's going to enter into the equation anymore with John. That's why even though I think Okongwu and John can work, I really think this Hawks team is like, we're going to make a real investment into Okongwu this offseason, and we want Okongwu to be a 18-plus point per game scorer because we think he can get there in this offense if we have the spacing. So I like, of all the guys, I think it's likelier than not that they're going to lose their both power forward and center, which to me is kind of unfortunate because they've kind of been the reason why the Hawks have been good these last 3 years. Like, combined with Trey's brilliance on offense, like those two on defense have really helped this team up in ways that don't really go appreciated because they've never been a truly elite defense. But like if those two together weren't on the floor for the majority of these games the last 3 years, the Hawks would be one of the worst defenses in the NBA. It'd be so bad. Even with Okongwu, how good he became, like they're gonna lose a lot. But I feel like they're probably more confident now that they got Bey, they have Jalen, whoever they get for Capella and Collins. Like, they feel like they can put together, they could put together lineups that will potentially be able to get stops, but offer more shooting and more like passing in ways that Capella and Collins can.
Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors, and for a championship team, it's all about making sure that every single player is a perfect fit for your roster. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part has to fit just right. So next time you're looking for parts or accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure that every single part that you need fits right and does so the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage, look for the green check, another part will be fitting for you or your money back. But just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when it comes to shopping at eBay Motors. With over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in absolutely no time. After all, it's really easy to bring home a win when your parts are actually guaranteed and right for you. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. One more time, that is ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. My party line is, and it's because it's correct. Like, trades are not as easy as people think that they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be super easy to trade John and Clint in the same offseason. It's just hard to do. Doesn't mean you can't do it. If they're motivated enough, they'll do it. I just don't think it's like as point and click as people think that it is. It's just, especially because those guys make real money. I mean, I don't think that Collins is like this terrible contract, but a lot of teams won't want him on the deal that he's on right now. After this last year or two, some teams are going to be like, nope, I'm good. Clint is similar in that I think Clint's a pretty good value on his contract, but Clint's got age concerns. He's getting older, and he's a traditional center, and like teams don't. So it's not going to be as easy as people think it is. Anyway, I agree with the whole premise of all of that because I found it interesting that you talked about Okongwu's extension talks because that is a fascinating negotiation. Number one, and people ask me about this all the time. I have no idea what the number is, no clue, because on one hand, this is a former mid-lottery pick with a pretty high cap hold if he gets there, who has shown a lot of stuff. On the other hand, he's never been a starter in 3 years. And He's also a 6'8" center. And like, I don't care about that. I think he's a center long term. People keep saying that he's a center. It's the Al Horford thing all over again. He's a center. He's a center. He's a center. But I don't know what the Hawks offer him. I don't know what his camp wants. It's a very interesting situation. But I will say, if you move Clint, especially if your plan is to move Clint, let's say, which they probably know right now what they want to do. Doesn't mean that they'll be able to do it, because they've tried to trade John before and they haven't done it. So it is what it is. But if you're planning on right now, early May, all right, let's hand it to Okongwu, it would probably be prudent to sign him to an extension, because if they don't, and he has a really good season, now he's making $100 million next year, which is fine.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Brad. He's making $100 million regardless.
Well, like, I don't think so. So I don't think that
really.
No, I'm saying if they extended him now, this summer, I don't believe it would be that much money. Now, it would be a considerable sum for sure. I don't think it's going to be 4. I don't think it's going to be 4 for 100. I don't, just because he has not proven it at the level of guys who get that kind of money, and that's not his fault. I think he's that kind of player, but look at his minute total. I mean, just the minutes, and again, that's not anybody's fault, but he just has never done it for a big sample. Like, Clint's been out at times for sure, but Clint was pretty durable this year, which is, useful for the team. But you didn't have that 30-game sample size of Okongwu playing 32 minutes a night and putting up, whatever stats you want to say. So, that's why it's so tricky, because I think everybody kind of knows what he's going to be or what he kind of already is, but he just hasn't done it. And there's the foul thing. Can he stay on the floor? All these questions. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll give him a ton of money now. I don't
like on my end, that this is one of those where you just got to be. This is where we'll see how ahead of the curve this management team is. Because to me, I look at Okongwu, especially defensively. Like, I look at some of these big men. Like, Okongwu so much. Like, to me, Okongwu is further along defensively than a lot of these dudes who are making real money in this league.
He's really good. He's really good.
I don't think people understand how hard it is to cover so much ground, and also like just be there on, like, is he an elite rebounder? No, but he might be below average, but he's not like, this isn't.
He's gotten better.
This isn't Jaren Jackson. Like, this is not Jaren Jackson Jr. levels of.
Well, and this year, by the way, the numbers play that out. Like, he made a tangible jump. It's not great, especially for a center, but he made like a 3 or 4% jump in defensive rebounding in just the numbers, like raw numbers on the rates, and like, that's real. He's never going to look. He's a 6'8" center. He's never going to be a great rebounder. But I heard the Jaren Jackson comparison. That's funny, because of course, your allegiances to the Memphis Grizzlies that you have. Yeah, but no, you're right. I mean, I think that it's a little thing, and being compared to Clint is so funny in some ways, because it's none of this is new, but those guys both being centered on the same team is so funny, because Clint and Rebecca are so different.
They are,
like, especially players. Current Clint, older Clint, obviously top 5 rebounder in the league, maybe even higher than that, top 3 rebounder in the league, just incredible rebounder. O has much more like ball skills, obviously, passing, feel wise, all that stuff, better hands at this point. But rebounding is what it is. And then you throw in the fact that, Clint never fouls, and Onyeka always fouls. So, and it's like, and all, it's just weird.
Okongwu fouls because he's smaller. Capella doesn't have to foul because he's, it's the difference between Capella, Collins, and Okongwu. Capella, and the reason why guys like Capella and Anthony Davis never foul is because they're huge. They're huge, and they just play. And also, they also feel it. They also feel too. Yeah, but you're right, and that's the thing about it. Like, they know how to use it. Like, Clint doesn't make the fouls that will drive you crazy about Onyeka, and we're down the rabbit hole, whatever. Is that he still makes the young guy fouls? The fouls you can't make. He makes the play is over. I'm committing this foul regardless.
That one and the moving screens, and like he just does the stuff that you can't get called for. But I will say, for as much as I will always live with a big set. Agreed. I'm just saying he has not figured out all the tricks yet to where he doesn't get called. Like, he gets called for more than everybody else.
The trick is to be a 10-year veteran in.
Yeah,
That's
that's probably true. But and I will say, just to be very fair, Onyeka has improved his foul rate every year in the league. It's still too high, but he's gotten better. Like, so just for example, as a rookie, he committed 8.2 fouls per 100 possessions. That is absurd. You can't live with that. Then it was 7.4 in year 2 and 6.5 this year. That's still too high. It is, but that's a lot better than 8.2. Like, he has gotten better. He'll keep getting better. Just for one comparison, by the way, I'm sure people don't have like this off the top of their heads. Clint has had a foul rate of 4 fouls or less per 100 possessions in 5 straight seasons, which is like,
I mean, Capella's great. Like, he's
great.
Like, to me, Capella's legitimate. Like, there are basketball players that are routinely talked about being better than Clint Capella, and they just aren't.
That are not.
I agree. At so many things.
I agree.
Capella is so good at so many things, and like I've really come to appreciate him. But at the same time,
and then he misses one layup, and you're off the rails again.
Ooh, that game 6 missed layup. Ooh,
okay.
Was a great pass. That was
no, it was not a great. Okay, hold on. It was not a great pass. He had to catch it like over his left shoulder. No, it was a great find by Trey. That's why he missed it. And look, I know Clint's a bad finisher. We all know this. I get it. Anyway,
it's not his fault.
It was not his fault. Okay, close the book on that. Okay, so we talked about John Onyeka, that whole thing. That's obviously going to be a talking point. We'll see. The rumor mills, I'm sure, are going to start. Whatever. There are other decisions. So we could spend more time on this when we talk again, I'm sure. But you have the perimeter situation where I yelled it, you yelled it. Their perimeter defense was egregious this year. It just was. DeJounte was not the guy they hoped he was defensively. He was not the only problem by any means, but he was a problem. Bogey's a problem.
Brad, hold on. One thing, when you say that, you're not just speaking of European. You're speaking from what people at the Hawks are telling you about DeJounte's defense, or
I don't want to how to say this diplomatically. I don't think that he has been as good defensively as they hoped he would be.
Okay.
Now, I do think that they still believe in him more than he's shown defensively.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, they still give him assignments. They still trust him. They like, for lack of a better phrase, the dog in him. They do believe that DeJounte has it. I think if you watch the tape, and I think if they probably know this on the record, off the record, whatever, that he was not very good defensively this year. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp, and when you're at your best, you can do absolutely great things. Sometimes I can get you bogged down. I know I've been there before in my own right, and life, you might feel overwhelmed, honestly. And if your maybe is not showing up in the way that you want to or that you need to for the folks around you, if it sounds like you at all, or if you're looking to give therapy a try in any way, BetterHelp is a great option for you. It's convenient, it's flexible, it's affordable, and it's entirely online. And really, I know a lot of people that have been benefiting from BetterHelp across the board. And it's really telling to me that they've been kind of looking for different things. It's still benefiting very differently and positively from the work of BetterHelp. Fill out a brief questionnaire right now to get matched with your licensed therapist. If you need to switch therapists anytime, you can do so with no additional charge. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can help you get there. And you can visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon right now to get 10% off on your first month with BetterHelp. That is BetterHelp. HELP.com/lockedon.
And to me, just the point aside, that goes to my execution thing. Like, I don't think it's a talent thing with DeJounte.
It's with him, it's definitely not. No.
And like, honestly, he's shown good defense in this league before. I just think there's a level of much to me with DeJounte. I do think there's a level of growth he has to show, like coming into next season as a player. He's really a little bit miscast on both ends.
Yeah. I mean, he's a little bit miscast too, because, and this is something that I know I had Matthew Tynan on in the offseason talk about this from the Spurs standpoint, and he kind of said it on my show, like, hey, people in San Antonio noticed that his defense got worse as he got in a higher role, which is, by the way, what happens to most guys. Like that's a very normal thing to happen, but reputations, as you well know, on defense in particular, are really hard to crack. Like, the most famous example of this is Kobe. Kobe was a great defender early in his career, and by the end of his career, he was not a good defender, but everyone still thought he was a great defender, and it's very normal. I mean, there's lines of examples of this, and DeJounte is the next one. Like, DeJounte early in his career got on the floor as a havoc creator defensively. That's what he was drafted to be. Like, he was supposed to be this. I mean, by the way, he led the league in steals, all that stuff. But then last year, he was suddenly a 28% usage guy. And like, it's very rare that guys stay as good defensively if they have that role in offense. It is what it is. Now, the hope was
there's only been one Kawhi Leonard.
Right. And it's really hard to do that. I mean,
one of those.
And especially like, he's not, for me, he's not a stopper on the ball in the way that they have had to have him be. I mean, part of that's the pairing with Trey, who I think was better defensively this year. To be very clear, I think Trey took a step forward defensively. Is he still not a very good defender most of the time? Yes, but he's way better. I mean, if you Trey now versus Trey 2-3 years ago, Trey's way better now. He is, but you're still playing with Trey Young, and you're also, I mean, Bogey's gotten a half step or more slower and worse defensively. It's not good. I think they know that. You know, Hunter is the only guy that they call that they've. I mean, is Hunter's. We'll save Hunter for later. But then you throw Sadiq Bey in there too.
Oh God,
who he
might be the worst of the bunch.
Right.
He might be the worst of the bunch.
Yeah. So anyway, there is a personnel question.
I liked what Sadiq Bey brought to the table for this team, and I thought he had a good playoff series. But his defense was just,
and that's kind of where I am too. Like I've hopefully made it clear. I'll say it again now. I think that transaction worked out well. He's given them some toughness. They all like him. His shooting is very, very valuable at both forward spots. Like that move for what they give up for him has worked so far. But objectively, at the same time, his defense is a problem, and hopefully it gets better. But it was a problem, like capital P problem in the playoffs, capital P. So. At the very beginning of this conversation, you talked about like a lot of it is execution and all that. Like I agree with you. I think this team will be, even if they run it back, which they won't, as we discussed. Even if they did, I'm pretty confident they'd be better defensively next year than they were this year. I do believe that with Quinn and with another year and all the stuff. But they do have a personnel deficiency on the perimeter defensively. They just do. I don't know who's going to fix it. I don't know who that player is. Maybe it's DeLon Wright. I miss you, DeLon. But, you know, people throwing about John. I mean, I know Andrew's already talked about Javon Carter. Sure, bring in Javon Carter. That'd be great.
For Javon Carter to simply never play like Aaron.
We
need to be a little bit realistic.
That's the thing.
I get it. We have to be realistic. If they're going to go with Trey and DeJounte, the only way they're going to get this defense out on the floor is at the forward spots. That's just
and agreed. I totally agree with you because, yeah, I think that they maybe will use DeLon just because I love DeLon. It's convenient. If their third guard was DeLon Wright, that would really help them. But you still have this situation where you're playing. I mean, their plan, I think, is still going to be 48 minutes of either Trey or DeJounte on the court. And then, you know, they'll play together for 28 of those minutes, whatever it's going to be. So, like, there's limited utility for your Aaron Holiday types. Now, Javon Carter is bigger than that. So maybe he plays a little bit of two, all that stuff. But, like, that role is not very big. You still have Bogey. Bogey's signed to an extension. Bogey's on the team. So he's a shooting guard. That's what he is. I mean, he kind of plays the three a little bit,
and they need him because
his shooting's invaluable and his creation's invaluable. And yeah,
they unfortunately traded the other guy.
Yes, they did. Anyway, moving on. So I'm with you. So, but the thing about that is, though, they've got Sadiq, who I think they are reasonably committed to, but we'll see. You have Hunter, who I was more confident in how committed they were to Hunter before when it was Travis, who loves Hunter. I don't know now, but everyone knows this. He's not a great number one guy to have on our defense, but he is their best defender. He just is. So, like,
what we got?
What are you supposed to do?
We simply refuse to even look at other options. We just
okay. So to go back to this, and it's not.
And to be fair to Hunter. To be fair to Hunter, I thought he did pretty well towards the end of the season. He
got better as the series went on. I totally agree. And it's funny. I went from being pre-draft high on Hunter. I was the guy who didn't like the trade very much, so I got yelled at a lot about that. And then there was the baby Kawhi phase when I was low on him again. And then now people think that I like him too much because he's just the same guy. I mean, he's still the same guy.
He is literally the same guy. He has not changed.
It's just funny. Anyway, so one way to fix or improve the perimeter defense would be to whatever you get for either John or Clint is defense focused. So not to bring up Andrew again, but one of Andrew's pet proposals is to get John to Brooklyn.
Andrew's running the team. Andrew's running the team.
I wish he was. I wish he was. I'm just saying, like you could reasonably turn John or Clint into a two-way perimeter player, like an actual defensive perimeter player. Maybe, but it does. Again, you have so many guys who you are committed to playing.
Yeah.
And one of them, by the way, is AJ, who I know you like and I like quite a bit. But AJ, as a defender in year 2, is probably not going to be very good, just realistically. I'm sure he'll improve from a rookie year. That's what happens from year 1 to year 2, especially on defense. He'll get better. But I'm talking about just next year. His defense is not going to be very good, you don't think? Yeah, Jalen helps. So if you just assume Jalen's going to play a lot, and I kind of do, we saw lots of great flashes from Jalen's perimeter defense. I already people yelling at us now. Like, don't forget to mention Jalen. Trust me, Jalen's upside as a defender is the highest on their team. Like if Jalen Johnson was just unleashed as a defensive stopper and that was like his thing, he might be awesome. I'm not saying he would be, but he might be like really, really, really good defensively. But we don't know. It's still a question for me. And this is not like sacrilege. I'm talking about right now, play in, play out. Jalen is not as good as Hawks fans think that he is defensively.
Yeah.
Because his highs are really high. And I'm not saying his flashes are incredibly intriguing. But his play, he makes mistakes. He's a young guy. I'm not saying anything bad about him. He was basically a rookie this year. It is what it is. He made the rookie mistakes. And by the way, he's never been asked in his life to navigate a screen until now.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean, now he's being asked to do these things that like guards do, and he's 6'10".
Yeah.
Like, and great. I mean, hopefully he'll be able to do it. So anyway, I think the long story short is that they have to improve internally in terms of like guys have to play better defensively. DeJounte, number 1, AJ, Jalen, Hunter,
DeAndre,
hopefully.
honestly.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Trey is kind of what he is. Bogey is kind of what he is at this point. You hope that Saddiq Bey takes a step forward. I'm not saying he's going to be good. He's probably not going to be, but man, he was bad. So hopefully he's better.
Saddiq Bey we cannot play him at the power forward position bad.
And the problem is that's the theory of the case with Saddiq Bey is that
that was the theory of the case
because at the three he's a step. But I agree. But the thing about Saddiq Bey and I think we said it. We like the transaction. He's a good player.
He's a good player.
He's really slow for a 3, like really slow. So the thought process, especially when they brought him in, was like, we can use him as a small ball forward, gets more shoot. And offensively, Glenn said this a lot. That their best 5 on offense in the second half of the season was Trey, DeJounte, Bogey, Saddiq, and a center. Yep. That is unguardable, to be honest with you. Like you throw Trey and DeJounte with 2 real shooters, and Bey and Bogey are real shooters, and a pick and roll guy, and you're unguardable. But the problem is Bey and Bogey can't stop anyone. I mean, that's a one-way lineup. It just is. Even with Clint, even if Clint's like peak Clint, he can't save that lineup on defense. So they don't have one-way players, but they have guys who are not two-way players. Does that make sense? I don't make it too. It's not. I'm not trying to make it too mean. Bogey's kind of almost a one-way player at this point. Bey was mostly a one-way player this season. Trey is Trey. But they have to figure it out.
Bey does provide physicality.
He does. He rebounds
glass, and like that's important. Like I'm not trying to trash Bey.
No,
completely, but like I went from wow, they paid this much for a guy who's not good to only 5 second-round picks.
Well, you hate
to get a capable wing.
You hate second-round picks. That's well documented.
No, I mean, Brad, that was $10 million. They spent $10 million.
Yeah,
that's $2 million per draft pick. $10 million bucks.
Right out of Tony's pocket.
Good on Wrestler for spending his money.
So I still have a question about the perimeter defense, and I don't think there's not an easy move to make that fixes it. There just isn't. And look, the overarching point
is a move they can make. There is a move they can make. They're not going to do it, but
what's that move?
Trade. They can trade DeJounte.
Oh well, they could. They're not gonna, I don't think it's going to happen.
They're not doing that.
No, but
I honestly, at this point, they're better off keeping them because.
And look, realistically, the whole and they would acknowledge. I think they have acknowledged at the times. This is going to be an offense first team as long as Trey's running the team, and that's fine. But there's a certain baseline level of defense that you have to be an actual contender that they've only reached once. And it was for about 3 months in 2021. They got there. They did. They got there for about 3 months. And that's not coincidentally when they made their run. Second half of the season, into the playoffs.
Kevin Huerter, Solomon Hill, and Tony Snell locking it down.
And
they have not come close.
And Pete Clint, like that's the best Clint's probably been.
Clint, yeah.
John was getting better at that point in time. Bogey was a lot better than he is now defensively. All those things. So, and look, but on the bright side, that personnel wasn't what you would describe as elite personnel defensively.
That's my point. They don't have to be elite, and you don't need elite personnel. You have to, however, execute as a team, and you got to be more together defensively, and like have that mind meld that they just. I feel like under Quinn, they were starting to get there, and that's something that's going to take time. Like that, regardless of the personnel they get or who they put on the floor. Nothing's going to change for them until they, as a team, they defend. Where it's not just because for too long it was just Capella's got it.
Well,
Collins got it.
I'm glad you said that because if you watched, and this is, I'm not Glenn is I'm not an expert like Glenn is at this, but if you watch the first few weeks of the Quinn era, it was like he told them, "You can't rely on Clint and Onyeka anymore." It was like they changed, and they didn't overhaul the whole scheme, but it was like, no, he was like, nah, guys, you're going to do what you're supposed to do. And we're not going to let Clint cover up for all of you anymore. Or we're not going to let John or whoever it is. And it was like, and the results were terrible, admittedly. And that's part of what we said earlier in this conversation is like, they weren't necessarily optimizing for that night. I didn't think during that stretch because it was almost like we're going to send a message like, guys, I can't run my schemes with you guys doing this, basically. It's what kind of felt like. And yeah, we'll see if they get better. I do think if I was a betting man that DeJounte will have a better season defensively next year than he had this year. That's one guy. I think if I had to guess, Bey with a full year on a team that cares for the first time in his career, on a good organizational team, all respect to the Pistons, who were not trying to win at any point when he was there, will be better. I don't think he's going to be good. He'll probably be better. AJ, I assume, will improve. Jalen, I assume, will improve defensively. So, like, that's little stuff. I think Hunter, maybe the same, maybe better. Shouldn't be worse. So, like, you could be optimistic about all those things. And I think that also
DeAndre Hunter will be DeAndre Hunter. Right. Rain, sleep, snow,
probably so.
DeAndre Hunter.
And if they do end up moving Clint or John or both, I hope that they target some guys who can play defense with those moves. Whether it be either if they clear them salary, like, okay, this is a popular idea. Like, let's say, for example, you could just dump John for nothing. I wouldn't do that. They may try, whatever. Then use your mid-level on a guy who can play defense. You know what I mean? Like you can't trade John and Clint and not improve your defense on the perimeter. You can't do those. You can't do that.
Or find a replacement, or something. Yeah.
Because even, because in theory that, moving on from John, I think that they probably would lean into a little bit more of playing smaller, more shooting focused. And now Jalen's not small. Jalen's a very large power forward and he'll play more. But yeah, Clint, for all of the stuff about Clint is a full razor defensively. He's a really good defender. And Onyeka is going to be good too. But they had 48 minutes of those guys. If you move Clint, you probably have 32 minutes of those guys. And there's other times you have to fill in. And anyway, it's for another podcast. But
yeah,
I think that's the other one, which we'll talk about very, very sort of a lot less, is that they still need more shooting. They just do.
Always, every team always needs more shooting, and the Hawks definitely do. They need it at.
They improved that with Bay, to be fair, and I think that AJ playing more will help that. Bogey, knock on wood, being out there will help them.
I think the most important thing is they need DeJounte, if he's going to be a future-facing part of this organization, which I think he is. Yep. He's got to take more threes. Period. Like there's no.
I think he knows it.
I still remember Game 6. Game 6. I think it was a huge. It did like it wasn't a big play. Wasn't talked about that much. Trey passed it up the floor quickly to DeJounte. He had a wide open 3-pointer. Granted, like he had a couple feet between him and the defender, and he didn't even look at the rim. And I'm like, you compare that to the Celtics. Jaylen Brown gets it up every time. Jaylen Brown is not this incredible 3-point shooter, but if he's open, he will shoot it. He will shoot it.
And DeJounte did take. I'll be encouraging. He took more than 7 per game in the playoff series.
Yeah,
that's
a good start.
That's
just
a good
start.
Do that. But yeah, I mean, regular season wise, he was not anywhere near that. And even under Quinn, where they were obviously preaching more threes, I'm trying to pull it up right now. So from March 1st on, we'll say he took 3.8 per game. Not enough.
Not
so,
enough.
But honestly, he's the only guy. And it's funny to me. They talk around it. I think if you read between the lines, it's almost like he's saying DeJounte without saying DeJounte sometimes, like, because he's the obvious guy. I mean, everybody else on the, Trey, I think, as we talked about earlier, Trey should take more threes. And I think he will.
And to me, with DeJounte, like the shot looks so much better than what he came into as a league. He looks good as a jumper. He just needs to have that's a offseason thing where it's like, hey, you got to have confidence taking these.
It's confidence. And it's also just it's mentality. He actually had, as funny as this is, he had when you combine volume and accuracy, the best 3-point shooting season of his career this year.
Yep.
It was about 5 attempts per game and 34%. Is that great? No. But before that, he was a super low volume guy. And then when he took more, he was shooting like 32%. I think it's realistic to hope he makes 35-36% on real volume next year. Very helpful. He's not going to be a knockdown guy. It's fine.
Brad, I will take 8 threes a game on 32% shooting. I'll take it. It's not great. But guess what? You're putting real pressure on the team. You're putting pressure on the defense to respect you as a shooter, so that it opens up your drive game, so you can get to the rim and get to the free throw line like that.
Yeah, and you're playing with Trey. You got to space the floor. It's just what it is.
Got to space the floor. Like you got to be confident as a spacer.
So yeah, I mean that's obviously we talked about that a lot, and I think just in general, having Bay, having Griffin, like that will help their spacing already. And look, John had a terrible shooting season. He just did. And
he's
I think
significantly better shooter. Like this,
I know, but
it can be an outlier. It's an outlier season combined with the fact that he was in an uncomfortable role. I do think his role affected his shooting in ways that it's hard to quantify for people to understand. Like unless you've played you really have to have played a sport, like any sport, but play at a semi-high level. When you're not comfortable, it just makes everything harder than it needs to be, And so, I just don't think he was ever comfortable on offense in the role that he was in, and he was asked to do things that he's a good spot-up shooter, but that's not his game. That's not his game, and it's something if he's in a proper role, if we run in more, I feel like the Celtics series is a prime example. Because DeJounte got suspended, there was more uses for John, so John was able to get into a flow on offense, and all of a sudden, he's hitting his 3-pointers. Yep. It's not a coincidence. He's a career 80% free throw shooter, guys. He's a great, he has great touch. He didn't just lose it one year. I think he also shot 38.8% for 3 years combined from 3. But my only point of bring that up is that just, he didn't have a good shooting season. So the results of that factor everything else, and he wasn't being guarded like everybody else. Like you said earlier, he was getting guarded more than Jalen, but he was not getting guarded like Saddiq Bey would be guarded at the 4. Or even DeAndre Hunter's really not.
Or Hunter, people fly Hunter more than they do, more than Collins. It is. True. Bogey's the guy that really terrifies people. If you watch the tape, people are still afraid, and rightly so, afraid of Bogey. But Hunter and Bay get guarded differently than Ja's getting guarded.
Absolutely.
All right. We've talked enough. We had a funny moment in the middle of the podcast that no one will ever hear that involved an oven or something. I don't know what was going on over there with Tyler. But
apartment almost blew up.
It's been a long recording session, and I do appreciate you doing this. We will do this.
Brad.
Again.
Hold on, Brad. I got to get some draft takes out here.
Okay, give me one because we're gonna do this again.
Just one?
Okay, give me whatever you want to say. It's fine. The floor's open. We're here.
Oh man, now you got me under pressure.
I'll veto it if we're not allowed. No, it's
Scoot got to go to guaranteed. Like I heard like when I saw that on
Cobb County's own, baby.
Man, listen, like I like Brandon Miller's game. I don't think he has the athleticism. Like I think he'd be a good player in this league, but like I feel very confident his ideal role is being a guy playing off of an elite creator, which is what Scoot can be. So Scoot's got to go too. I actually like who's the kid from Villanova I was talking to you about?
Cam Whitmore.
Cam Whitmore. You want to talk about an athlete? Now that's a guy. Plus his age. Plus he's got a real jumper. Like I think he's going to be somebody who's going to get top 5. At the end of this, like I think he's going to go top 5, even over the Thompson twins, just because. They're Thompson twins to me, like they're an open box special. I have no idea. They played at OTE. Like respectfully, I don't know what they did OTE translates. Plus they're 20. Them being 20 is actually more of the red flag than anything else. But like their profile is great, but like I don't know the competition level of that league. But those are the guys. Those are kind of all the guys I like. But for the Hawks in particular. Anthony Black and Cason Wallace, those are the dudes. Like
we're on the same page. We're on the same page.
I watched some clips of Cason Wallace defensively, Brad. I was hooting and hollering.
I talked to Brian about this. I mean, I don't know if he's gonna get there, but he also checks the blue blood box that they seem to like, the 5-star prospect box. I mean, he can't shoot, but that's fine. Whatever.
I mean, neither can Anthony Black, but like Black's kind of bigger.
Yeah, he's 6'7".
I don't think. Yeah, so different role, but like those are like for the Hawks, those are the two guys.
All right, so
but they're going to take
early May. Don't do it. Don't even say it. Don't even say it on the podcast. Don't do it.
They're taking Nick Smith Jr. though. They're taking Nick Smith Jr. I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
So if everyone listens to the
it's not bad. He's a talented player, but like
if you're a diehard listening to this podcast at the very end, you might have heard me talk to Brian Schroeder about this earlier this week. And we agree that Nick Smith is the worst possible pick for the Hawks in terms of like top 20 guys.
It's like complaining about the Falcons taking Bijan.
It's not okay. It's kind of like
when are the Hawks not gonna take the sexy former top 10 overall? Like he was top 5 before the season started.
He was the only reason why I'm not on this wagon is that the fit is so bad. He's an on-ball, bad defending guard. They just cannot have that guy anymore.
When has an on-ball, bad defending guard ever stopped the Hawks before?
I understand.
They need shot creation, and he can do that.
Need shot creation,
even though he didn't do it at.
He wasn't very good
in college.
Okay, well that's a little snippet of Tyler's draft takes. I promise we're gonna do this again. So between now and the draft. You and I will talk at least one more time, probably twice. I don't know.
Unless my apartment blows up. So
yeah, once that happens. So knock on wood on that, folks. And we avoided disaster tonight, mercifully. And also while we were talking, this is going to probably hold for a day, but we did not get to watch the Celtics beat the absolute brakes off the Sixers apparently by
but hold on,
34 points.
The MVP came back.
He did come back. Yes, it's true.
I'm confused.
Boston had one of those games where they're just working. Oh, yeah, there you go. 20 of 51 for 3 for Boston. There you go.
But the Sixers got the MVP back, and everybody was like, "It's their year, Brad." What? I'm confused.
All right, we're logging off the podcast.
I don't understand.
Before I get fined. Tyler, anything to plug?
The only MVP ever to come from Africa, Brad. You gotta respect him. You gotta hand it to him. I can't believe he said that. Like, what? Come on, Joel. Like, I I like Joel, but he be saying some stuff, Brad. He just be saying some stuff.
I actually I have mostly a cold dead heart. I actually really enjoyed the video of him winning and getting choked up. That was actually nice. It was like, oh, this is kind of nice. He was really excited to win. Daryl Morey should have his own. Daryl Morey should have his own reaction video.
Brad, I refuse to watch this.
That's fine.
I refuse to watch that.
That's fun. I don't blame you.
I want to see that.
That's okay. I had to cover it. I had to cover it for time, so I had to watch it.
I'm glad he cried himself into an MVP. Like, thank you. I finally won. Now I can get bounced in the second round, and like my career is complete. So happy to him. Kudos.
We're looking off now. Tyler, anything to plug? You got anime? What's going on before you out of here?
Oh man, there's some anime.
Tradition.
I'll just say Oshi no Ko, incredible. It's on High Dive, so I would advise you to get a quick subscription to that for the season, and then cancel it in the next couple months. It's pretty cheap. That's the process. But if there's one anime to watch this year, that's the anime. It's been incredible. It's from if you like Kaguya-sama, Love is War, like if you love that, same creator. It's a different vibe though. It's a different vibe. I'm letting you know right now. If you're looking for a happy-go-lucky story, that's not what we're getting. It's pretty grim. It's realer than what you would expect it to be, considering the premise. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but it's a shockingly grounded emotionally show. So I'm really enjoying that one. So that's Oshi no Ko. Again, it's on High Dive, so check it out.
There you go.
I ain't got nothing else, Brad.
That's all. That's all we needed. We had to have one recommendation. You're always ready for something. As for everybody else, though, for real, please follow Tyler if he lets you on Twitter for his takes. I understand. Just saying, if he allows you, follow.
Blame corporate life, man. It's either I unlock my Twitter that Musk owns, and like my bosses see these reckless tweets that I tweet all the time that I don't, at the heat of spur of the moment, or I can have it locked and you can just have a party with me in the locked account, and then when you guys try to retweet what I say, and I'm like, I didn't say that.
Yeah, I fairly regularly go to hit the quote tweet button or something, and I can't do it. So, All right. As for everybody else, please subscribe to this podcast as well. Apple, Spotify, all those places. Tyler will be back at some point. I will make sure of that. Talk more about the draft in particular and whatever transaction stuff has been bubbling since then. But until then, we'll see you all next time.